Healthcare fraud has become prevalent in the United States. According to healthcare fraud statistics, in the fiscal year 2020 alone, there were 330 healthcare crime offenders who made up for 7.7% of all ripoff, property damage, and criminal violations. The number of healthcare fraud culprits declined by 36.2% since the fiscal year of 2016. Judging from the numerous reported cases of healthcare fraud and court prosecutions between 2021 and 2022, it is safe to say that the number of healthcare offenders has doubled since 2020. Welcome to today's episode of Fraud Files. Today we will be talking about the case of a Greensboro resident who was sentenced to 22 months in jail for plotting to defraud the North Carolina Medicaid System, and a similar story of an Alamance County resident who was also sentenced to 70 months confinement for Medicaid fraud. To not miss any of the details in this story, make sure you watch till the end of the video, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button to become part of this channel and click the bell icon to get notified of our subsequent videos. In a case investigated by the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Medicaid Investigations Division of the North Carolina Department of Justice at Greensboro, a North Carolina woman, Sharita Mathis Richardson, has been found guilty of a conspiracy to commit healthcare fraud and has been sentenced to 22 months in jail and 3 years of supervised release. According to court records and other proof made available in court, between around 2012 and 2016, Richardson plotted with Antonio Fazzard and others to swindle the North Carolina Medicaid System through the submission of over $4 million in inaccurate statements for the repayment of behavioral health services. Medicaid is a federally funded healthcare benefit that assists in paying for medical-related services for low-income people in their households. In North Carolina, Medicaid is regulated by the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services Division of Health Benefits. Fazzard controlled and managed a number of behavioral health corporations that purported to contribute assistance to Medicaid beneficiaries in the middle and eastern districts of North Carolina. These corporations comprised Group Service Incorporated and Zufari Kids, LLC. Each of these entities employed an organized plan to rip off Medicaid by billing for services that were never provided. Group Service Incorporated upheld departments at different periods in Raleigh, Dunn, Durham, and Sanford. Among other things, Group Service Incorporated hired Reginald Van Reese Jr. and Ruben Samuel Matos to canvass low-income communities to sort out qualified Medicaid recipients and obtain their personal identifying information, PII, including their Medicaid identification numbers. The harvested PII was then incorporated into fake and defrauding statements that Group Service submitted to Medicaid for compensation. Documents show that writers, including Humberto Mercado, were also recruited to falsify documentation in the event of a Medicaid audit. Richardson held herself out as Group Service's chief operating officer and helped Fazzard in the day-to-day operations of the illegal business. During much of the same time period, Fazzard and Richardson were also supervising partners of Zufari Kids, which was likely swindling the North Carolina Medicaid system. Zufari Kids operated in Durham and Garner. The Durham area shared the same address as Group Service and purported to give mental health therapy to Medicaid recipients. The Garner location was strictly in a drop-in daycare facility. The daycare, though, was properly sponsored by Medicaid fraud earnings paid out to Zufari's mental health enterprise. These individuals were entrusted with the responsibility of providing healthcare services to the public. However, they intentionally conspired to steal millions in federal funding intended to help patients. On March 25, 2021, Richardson pleaded guilty to the charge. As part of sentencing, Richardson was also ordered to pay $2,005,531 in criminal compensation to the North Carolina Fund for Medical Assistance. Fazzard, Reese, Matos, and Mercado each pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit healthcare fraud in different but similar cases. Reese, Matos, and Mercado were formally convicted to terms of incarceration and sanctioned to pay restitution to the North Carolina Fund for Medical Assistance. Fazzard is slated to be convicted during the term of court that begins on July 20, 2022. This defendant conspired with others to steal millions in federal funding intended to provide health care to those in need, said U.S. Attorney Michael Easley. Our office will continue to bring those who abuse and misuse taxpayer funds to justice. In a similar case inspected by the Internal Revenue Service, Criminal Investigation Division, and the North Carolina Medicaid Investigations Division, a 46-year-old Tracy Yvette Clay was sentenced on June 11, 2015 for Medicaid fraud. Clay pleaded guilty on September 2, 2014 to 3 healthcare conspiracy indictments in relation to a strategy to swindle the North Carolina State Medicaid project through the false provision of behavioral health assistance. The strategy included North Carolina Behavioral Health and Counseling Services Incorporated, an enterprise incorporated by Clay in February 2012. Clay was the exclusive incorporator and was listed as Press CEO. The enterprise was founded for executive objectives and would not give professional assistance according to the incorporation documents. Clay submitted claims for Medicaid payments to the North Carolina Division of Medical Assistance. Clay also submitted statements for mental health treatment using clients who never received assistance from North Carolina Behavioral and were oblivious that someone was using their Medicaid identification numbers. This created a lot of confusion in the system, as many innocent people who were unaware of what was going on and never received any medical services from North Carolina Behavioral were recorded as beneficiaries. Clay committed identity theft in order to swindle the system and ended up putting innocent individuals in trouble. Clay was sentenced by Chief United States District Court Judge William L. Osteen Jr. to 17 months confinement, a special assessment of $300. Clay must also pay $990,099.58 in restitution to the North Carolina Medicaid program. United States Attorney Rand said, "Instead of working within the mission of Medicaid to help the poor, the elderly, and the disabled obtain necessary medical services, this defendant defrauded both the victims and the taxpayers. We will continue to work effectively with our partners to hold those who prey upon vulnerable populations accountable, and we will do everything we can to return much-needed funding to the program." And here we come to the end of today's episode of Fraud Files regarding Sharita Mathis Richardson and Tracy Yvette Clay, who in similar ways but different time periods defrauded the Medicaid healthcare system, wreaking havoc on people's reputation and livelihood. In a world that is increasingly becoming more crooked and deceptive, we can only hope there are those in law enforcement willing to bring justice to these criminals. Stealing from the poor, elderly, or disabled shows just how low one will go to make a buck. We hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please subscribe to our channel and push on that like button. Stay tuned to our channel for amazing videos like this one by clicking the bell icon. And don't forget to share your thoughts in the comment section below about this event. We'll see you in another Fraud Files soon. Until then, remain a law-abiding citizen and don't hesitate to report any suspected Medicaid fraud. Together, we can make the world a better place.